Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. Today we are unpacking something really fascinating.
Yeah, we've got a really intense one today.
We do. And I want you, the listener, to just imagine something for a second. Imagine a provocative blueprint for massive geopolitical change.
Right.
But like a blueprint that doesn't rely on military intervention or, traditional armed insurgency.
Exactly. It's about the untapped potential of an exiled community.
Yeah, and blending that with some crazy tactical uses of modern tech. So our mission today is to dig into this specific text. It's a blog post, actually.
Like very detailed, fiery blog post.
Super detailed. It's dated April 9th, 2026, and it's by an author named Paramendra Kumar Pagat.
And he actually notes right in the text that he was Barack Obama's first full-time volunteer in New York City, which is an interesting background.
Right, yeah. And he titled this piece, Barackface, The Iranian Diaspora is Missing in Action.
It's a heavy title.
It really is. Now, before we jump in, we just got to lay down a quick disclaimer for you guys.
Yeah.
Definitely necessary for this one.
Yeah, because, well, this source deals with some incredibly highly charged themes, right? Regime change in Iran, U.S.-Israel diplomacy, internal diaspora politics.
It's a minefield.
Totally. So we just want to explicitly clarify that neither of us are endorsing any political viewpoints here, left-wing, right-wing, whatever.
Right. Our role is strictly analytical. We're just impartially unpacking the argument.
Exactly. We're just looking at the mechanics of the strategies presented.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even start?
Well, I mean, the best place to start is the author's core premise, which is this massive paradox.
Okay.
He says, Iran is at this historic crossroads, right? You have a regime that, on one hand, ruthlessly suppresses its own people.
Yeah.
And exports instability through proxy groups, pursues nuclear ambitions.
All the stuff we see on the news constantly.
Exactly. But then, on the other hand, you have massive internal protests.
Right. The people themselves.
Yeah. I mean, think of the 2009 Green Movement.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Or the woman life freedom protests in 2022 and the demonstrations continuing through 2025 and 2026.
So there's this really deep, undeniable hunger for change inside the country.
Precisely. But here is the paradox. You have this massive Iranian diaspora.
We're talking, what, like 4 million people?
About 4 million, yeah.
Oh.
Highly educated, highly economically successful. They're concentrated in, like, Southern California, across Europe, Canada.
Right.
And the author's point is they're sitting on the sidelines. They're completely fractured by ideology and, these intense personality clashes.
It's wild to me. It's like, I was thinking about this when reading the piece. It's like having a multi-million-dollar sports car, right?
Oh, I like that analogy.
But the engine is completely dismantled. Like, all the high-performance parts are sitting right there on the garage floor.
The capital, the expertise.
Exactly. The global reach, the cultural ties to the people back home. It's all there, but it's not connected to a drive shaft. It's just pieces.
Yeah, it's a bunch of parts that can't actually move the vehicle.
But here's where I want to push back a little, or at least ask a question.
Sure.
Usually, right, when there's intense external pressure, like massive protests back home where people are literally dying, or threats of war,
Right.
doesn't that usually force people together? Why has that pressure actually deepened the rifts in the diaspora instead of uniting them?
See, what's fascinating here is the psychology of exile itself. The author really digs into this.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, you have to remember the trauma of the 1979 revolution.
Yeah, which started all this displacement.
Exactly. You have decades of physical separation. And what happens is these competing visions for what a future Iran should look like, they become incredibly entrenched.
Because they've been arguing about it for 40 years.
Right. So imagine you're a faction in Paris that wants a constitutional monarchy.
Okay.
And you're arguing with a faction in Toronto that wants a secular republic. For decades, it's just theoretical.
Just like intellectual debate.
Yeah. But the moment a real protest happens in Tehran and the regime actually looks fragile.
Oh, I see. Suddenly the debate isn't theoretical anymore.
Exactly. Suddenly it's a zero-sum game for the actual future of the country. So instead of uniting, the infighting gets worse because everyone wants to be the one holding the steering wheel if the regime falls.
Man, and you, the listener, think about groups you belong to, like professional groups or even just a social community.
Yeah, human nature is messy.
It really is. How often does immense talent just go completely to waste because of internal friction? Like, you lack a unified goal, so everyone just fights over the carpet color instead of building the house.
That is exactly what the author is critiquing.
So, okay, if the individual parts of the sports car engine are useless on their own, How does this author actually propose we assemble them?
Well, this is where we move from like abstract hope to very concrete structure.
Which we desperately need.
Right. So the author demands what he calls a radical reset.
Radical reset. What does that actually look like?
It means all of these different diaspora organizations, or at least the vast majority of them, have to merge under a single umbrella entity.
Just one massive organization.
Yes. And this entity has to adopt a very specific platform from day one.
No more endless debates.
Exactly. The author has complete disdain for vague manifestos. He says this umbrella group must agree on an interim constitution.
Okay, interim, meaning temporary.
Right. Based on universal human rights, strict secular governance, the rule of law, and a transparent roadmap to free elections.
Basically setting the ground rules for the transition, not the final destination.
Yes. You defer the big ideological fights to a constituent assembly later. Right now, you just build the structural framework.
It's all about practical power building.
Exactly. He wants aggressive nationwide membership drives, town halls, cultural festivals, policy forums.
He uses this phrase that I really latched on to, the density of repeated interactions.
Oh, yeah. That's a crucial concept here.
It's brilliant. Like, the analogy I thought of is it's the difference between going to a protest rally, which is, kind of like attending a hype concert.
That's right. Super high energy.
Super high energy, you feel like you're changing the world, but it's temporary.
It ends.
It ends. What he's proposing is more like joining a gym.
Yeah.
You got to show up every week. You got to go to local chapter meetings, get on Zoom strategy sessions. You're building long-term structural muscle.
And that muscle is what prevents a catastrophic power vacuum.
Right.
Think about it. If the regime collapses tomorrow and the diaspora has just been going to rallies.
There's no one to actually run the country.
Exactly. You need an organized opposition structure that can survive the day the regime falls. Otherwise, history shows us the most violent, heavily armed faction just takes over.
Right, which defeats the whole purpose.
Completely.
But, okay, let me stop you there. Because building an organized opposition structure safely from, like, a coffee shop in California or Paris...
A lot easier said than done.
Well, yeah.
Right.
And how do you integrate that comfy external structure with the millions of people who are actually living inside Iran?
Under heavy surveillance.
Exactly. Heavily censored borders. You can't just send them a calendar invite for the revolution.
No, you can't. And that is where the author introduces this concept of DemocracyTech.
Okay, I got really excited about this part. Break down DemocracyTech for us.
So it's essentially the deliberate, sophisticated application of modern tools to build parallel structures.
Parallel to the state's structures.
Right. To completely outmaneuver a repressive regime. The author outlines this specific technical toolkit, and it's layered.
Like different tiers of tech.
Exactly. So the top layer is high-tech. Think Starlink or, equivalent satellite internet.
Beaming Wi-Fi from space to pierce the state firewalls.
Literally, yes. Bypassing the stage fiber optics entirely.
Okay.
But of course, that's a single point of failure. Satellites can be jammed. Dishes can be confiscated.
So what's the backup?
The mid-tech layer. The author proposes local area networks, or LANs.
Meaning what, exactly?
Ad hoc mesh networks hidden in, dense neighborhoods or university dorms. So if the government shuts off the broader internet...
Which they do all the time during protests.
All the time. If they do that, these local offline-first networks allow people to securely communicate, share files, and organize completely off the grid.
Wow. Okay, and what if they start busting down doors looking for routers?
Then you drop to the low-tech layer.
Right.
Widespread use of walkie-talkies on encrypted channels. Or even just low-tech physical courier networks, people running messages by foot.
So what does this all mean, practically? Because the contrast here is wild.
How so?
Well, you've got this jarring juxtaposition. You're using Elon Musk-style satellite internet right alongside guys running messages on foot like we're in the 18th century.
Right. It spans the whole spectrum.
And there's another logistical piece the author mentions that genuinely worries me. He talks about establishing forward base stations.
Ah, yes. In the surrounding strategic cities.
Yeah, he lists places like Baghdad, Dubai, Karachi, and Mumbai.
To relay information and manage logistics.
Right, but I gotta push back on this. Setting up clandestine tech hubs in Baghdad or Karachi, that is incredibly dangerous.
It is.
I mean, we're talking about civilian diaspora engineers. Isn't that wildly complex and risky for them to pull off?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you're absolutely right to be skeptical. It is extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
But the author's core philosophy here is resilience. You cannot rely on a single point of failure, like a single social media app.
Sure.
A layered communication network turns isolated grievances into coordinated action. And honestly, the implicit argument is that if people inside Iran are risking their lives facing live ammunition.
The diaspora has to take on some physical risk, too.
Exactly. You can't just manage a revolution comfortably from Silicon Valley.
I hear that. I do. But this whole DemocracyTech layered network, it still kind of sounds like a Silicon Valley utopian fantasy. Like, does this actually work in the real world?
Well, that's the best part of the text.
Yeah.
The author actually provides a very real, very recent proof of concept.
Okay, let's talk about the Nepal case study, because this blew my mind.
September 2025 in Nepal.
This is so crazy. So the Nepalese government was facing all this dissent from Gen Z, right?
Right. So the government does what authoritarian regimes do. They initiate a sweeping nationwide social media ban to muzzle the youth.
Just try to turn off the internet for everyone.
Yeah. But the youth just casually pivoted. They moved all their organizing to a gaming chat app, Discord.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Discord is literally an app designed for gamers to talk while playing Minecraft or whatever.
Exactly. And they used a specific server named Youths Against Corruption.
Right.
What started as just informal chats absolutely exploded.
Okay.
They used Discord to coordinate street protests. They shared safety protocols. They even ran polls.
With like thousands of votes inside the app.
Yes. Thousands of votes to democratically pick an interim leader of the movement.
While the government is just completely blind to it.
Completely blind. And they toppled the sitting prime minister in roughly 48 hours.
48 hours. That's insane. And the text notes the core organizing phase happened in, what, 16 to 27 hours?
Blistering speed.
It's like using a digital treehouse meant for gamers to organize a national strike, all while the government is looking the other way at Facebook and Twitter.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And the reason it worked is because agile technology moves so much faster than bureaucratic state censorship.
The government's deep packet inspection is looking for standard social media traffic, not varied voice channels on gaming servers.
Right. And the author uses this to absolutely shame the Iranian diaspora.
He really goes after them.
He says, look, if the youth in a small Himalayan nation can pull off a decentralized regime change in days using a gaming app,
then a diaspora filled with tech entrepreneurs, engineers, and massive wealth has literally zero excuse for inaction.
Zero. It proves the methodology works.
Okay, so that handles the internal pressure. We've got DemocracyTech, we've got the Discord strategy, we've got the umbrella organization handling the diaspora's internal squabbles.
Right.
But what about the external pressure? Like, how does the diaspora handle the global community?
Diplomacy.
Yeah, diplomacy. Because the U.S., Europe, Israel, they have to be factored into this.
And this requires a massive shift in how world powers talk about Iran. Because historically, the author critiques the current U.S.-Israel approach.
Okay, how so?
He says it's viewed almost exclusively through a security lens.
Meaning nukes and missiles.
Exactly. Nuclear weapons, ballistic missiles, and proxy militias in the region.
Great.
But human rights abuses, the executions, the torture, the gender apartheid, all of that is treated as an afterthought in international negotiations.
It's like a footnote.
Yeah. So the author proposes flipping the script.
Flipping the script, okay.
It says the diaspora must use this new umbrella organization to lobby relentlessly. Make human rights the central non-negotiable demand of any engagement with Tehran.
Not the nukes.
Well, the nukes are part of the bargain. The explicit offer to Tehran should be verifiable dismantling of nuclear and missile programs and cutting back proxies in exchange for prosperity and integration. But the core is rights.
Just to make sure I'm getting the logic here, the current U.S. approach is basically like constantly trying to disarm a burglar who keeps breaking into your house.
Good analogy, yeah.
You keep taking away his crowbar, but you never ask why he's breaking in or try to change the foundation of the house itself.
Right.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
If you're a policymaker in Washington, does making human rights the priority actually weaken the security goals of the U.S.-Israel alliance? Because that makes it way harder to strike a quick deal to stop a nuclear bomb.
The author completely rejects that realist view. He says, no, prioritizing human rights actually strengthens the alliance.
How?
Because it adds what he calls moral clarity and domestic legitimacy. The author argues that an authoritarian regime that terrorizes its own people will never be a reliable international partner anyway.
So any narrow security deal is inherently flawed.
Exactly. They'll just use sanctions relief to fund more proxies.
Hmm.
The author says a democratic, rights-respecting Iran is literally the only long-term outcome that truly neutralizes the security threats.
While also giving dignity to, 90 million Iranians.
Yes. And the diaspora is uniquely equipped to do this lobbying.
Because they have the connections.
They have the language skills, the cultural fluency, the policy expertise to brief lawmakers in Washington and Brussels.
They just haven't had the unified umbrella coordination to actually execute it effectively.
Precisely. Up until now, 10 different factions would go to D.C. with 10 different messages, and lawmakers just tune it out.
Right. It's just noise. Okay, so the blueprint is now fully laid out on the table.
The whole architecture.
It's got the umbrella organization, DemocracyTech,
Wow.
the Nepal Discord strategy, and human rights first diplomacy.
It's comprehensive.
Very. But, we got to talk about the skeptics.
Oh, yeah. There were plenty.
Because people are going to read this and say, this is impossible. They're going to argue that diaspora politics are inherently too fractious.
Yeah.
Trust is non-existent after decades of betrayal. And honestly, wouldn't any unified umbrella group just immediately be infiltrated or co-opted by the regime's intelligence services?
This raises an important question, and the author doesn't shy away from it. He basically says, fair points.
He concedes that.
He concedes the risk.
Yeah.
But his ultimate counter-argument is stark. He says, okay, what's the alternative?
Right.
The alternative is continued irrelevance. You just stay paralyzed while the people inside the country bleed for the very freedoms that the diaspora enjoys from safety.
Yeah. That is a heady guilt trip.
It is, but it's grounded in urgency. He points out that the window for action is narrowing quickly. The 2022 protest showed the world exactly what Iranians want.
It exposed the regime's fragility to the whole world.
Yes. But, tragically, it also exposed the diaspora's divisions. When the world looked for an organized alternative to back, there wasn't one.
Just a vacuum.
Right. So, think about this. The author tells the diaspora it's time to move from reactive emotion to proactive architecture.
Reactive emotion to proactive architecture. Man, I want to say that directly to you, the listener. How often in our own lives do we just settle for reactive emotion?
Instantly.
Right. Just complaining on social media, feeling frustrated, getting outraged by the news. Instead of doing the hard, boring work of building proactive architecture to actually solve the problem.
It's much easier to just post a black square or an angry tweet.
Totally. Building institutions is boring, but it's what works. And the author's final call to action is brutal.
It really is.
He says the Iranian people have courage, but they lack a professional opposition structure ready to govern the day after.
The day the regime falls.
Right. The time for half measures is over. The diaspora must, quote, step up or step aside.
Step up or step aside. It's an ultimatum.
Okay, so let's briefly summarize this journey we've been on.
Yeah, let's recap.
We started with the tragedy of a sidelined, fragmented diaspora. Then we looked at this incredibly ambitious plan to build a unified umbrella structure.
The radical reset.
Right. Then we got into the fascinating reality of DemocracyTech. The lands, the couriers, and the crazy Nepal Discord revolution.
Still can't get over that 48-hour timeline.
Unbelievable. And finally, the need to completely rewrite international diplomacy to put human rights first.
It's a massive, sweeping vision.
It really is. But before we go, I know you have a final thought you wanted to leave everyone with, something that kind of pushes this whole concept even further.
Yeah, I do. Because the source focuses so heavily on using tools like Starlink and Discord to bypass the state, right? To help citizens govern the day after the regime falls.
Right.
But consider the technological paradox here.
Okay.
If tools like Discord can organize a massive decentralized uprising that topples a government in just 48 hours, what happens the day after the day after?
Wait.
Yeah. How does a newly formed fragile democratic government maintain stability when the exact same digital tools that empowered their rise make any centralized authority incredibly vulnerable to the next instant 48-hour digital uprising?
So the tool that sets you free literally makes you ungovernable once you're in power.
Exactly. It's something we are all going to have to grapple with as this tech evolves.
That is a deeply unsettling but brilliant point to end on. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the architecture of the world around you. We'll catch you next time.